Ladies and gents, welcome to the OneUp Sessions. I don't think it's officially called that, but I'm now giving it that name. As you can probably see on the screen behind me, it's all about driving success, motivating your team in a tough market. My name is Derry. I'm the CEO and co-founder of OneUp Sales, and I've got two wonderful guests with me. We've got Dougie Loan, the CRO of SourceWhale, and over here, pro wrestler, it's Alex Gilbert, L&D Manager over at 11 Investments. Gents, how are we doing? Dougie, how was your travel today? Come down from the north, or?
I have flown down this morning from Scotland. It was good, nice and easy. Straightforward flight from Glasgow to London. It's only an hour.
I feel like you have to do that quite a lot.
I do.
Otherwise, the missus back home get back home now.
Absolutely, yeah. Twice a week, down and then back is the typical one. But I can't complain. Honestly, straightforward. How was your travel?
How was my travel? It's the early train, and you're amongst all these other people who half look like zombies, who know that it's a pain to be up that early to have to get the train down to London. It wasn't that busy a train though, for once, which is a little bit of a blessing. So I can't complain too much.
So you did lots of prep for this then?
I mean, to be fair, I've got a few notes. I thought, you know what, I'll be really good about this. I'll sit and write in my notebook. I'll get a few notes down there just to remind myself who I'm actually speaking to. Speaking of, Alex, how are you today?
I'm very good. I mean, this secret bunker location is really close on my train line, so it's really easy. Same train as normal, and I just got a McDonald's breakfast. And I ate fruit this morning if my wife is watching. But yeah, I'm just so excited to be with both of you guys. It's thanks for having me.
I've got to say, we've come here looking like people who work in tech, and then you've come here a mix of child entertainer, pro wrestler, and just a very, very vibrant guy.
What are you talking about? Hey, kids. It's a gimmick that I feel like I've lived with for a while now. So knowing that we were going to be in this incredible studio, I had to bring the energy, guys.
I like it. I'm a big fan. I'm a huge fan.
You've done just that, mate, which is perfect. Before we get into things, I think it's worth learning a bit more about you guys and your roles as well, so people know what it is we're going through today. Dougie, I've said CRO, Chief Revenue Officer at SourceWhale.
Yep.
A bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a recruiter for a couple of years and then joined a company called Odro. Was there for 5.5 years, going from salesperson all the way through to CRO, and then joined SourceWhale 3 years ago, where I'm Chief Revenue Officer. So I lead our sales, customer success, marketing, account management, and talent acquisition teams. So
where do you find time to sleep?
On the flight between Glasgow and London.
That's a short distance.
but yeah. So no, honestly, we're going to talk about driving performance, etc. Got to do that across a wide variety of different people. But obviously lucky to have a lot of great leaders in the business as well. But excited to chat about this today. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Alex?
My background is actually from finance. I actually come from outside of recruitment.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so my background is finance and call centres, so driving performance, all banging the phone. It was actually collections, like debt collection. Wow. So I have a big experience of ringing people up going, hey, you owe money. Yes, I am those words. You still owe £4,000. So that was my original background. I did L&D there, so I'm an L&D guy. And then I transitioned into recruitment. And the reason why I love, again, sorry to talk about both your products immediately, but I don't have the recruitment experience. So I had to look at data to understand what does good look like. And I was very fortunate when I first started in recruitment. I would look at the data, see what was working, and then I've transitioned into various different roles, all L&D focused. And I'm genuinely very excited about this conversation today. So again, thanks for having me.
I don't even think it's just a comment. I don't know about you, Dougie, but whenever I see Alex, it's not even so much excitement about a conversation, or it's just excitement in general.
Yeah. You are one of the most energetic guys in the industry.
I can't work out if you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm being
genuinely, honestly, 100%. I'm a huge fan, man.
Your energy is very effective.
That's very kind.
And the shirts definitely speaks to the energy as well. So.
Well, I'll take. I know you're lying, but I'll take the compliment. But thank you.
Take the compliment indeed. Right. We said we're going to talk a bit about motivation today, and to bring it all down and get serious for a second, we had or hosted a CEO lunch there last week, and the big topic when we were out on the table and said, introduce yourselves and one key challenge that you're currently going through. People was what basically every person in the room raised. Retaining them, motivating them, especially during a really tough couple of years. Coming to you first, Alex. How have you guys felt during this? Obviously, you don't want to spill all the beans here on what's going on at 11 Investments, but how have you guys found the last couple of years, and have you found that a challenge as well?
It would be a lie if I said, it's been easy and we know what we're doing.
To quote someone last week, anyone on LinkedIn who says, we're absolutely smashing it right now is talking bollocks. That was the exact line they used. And they said standing still feels good right now when you look at how, for a lot of businesses, it is moving backwards and it is still tough.
And I to give you immediately the L&D side of things, I think it's tough and people struggle, and I find personally, from my point of view, if you let people struggle on their own, of course they're going to leave. Of course they are. I forget the Richard Branson quote word for word, but so many companies are worried about doing L&D, but actually you spend so much money, but then they might leave. Yeah, but what if you spend no money and then
they stay?
And they stay, yeah. And you think, well, so from my point of view, it's about giving people the support. I'm much more of an arm around someone, like, all right, okay, we know it's tough. What can we do? You can't control everything, but what can you control? Let's work on those. So to answer your question directly, it's lots of L&D, lots of support. There are obviously people that are underperforming, but then you have to look at, is it the market or is it the person? And a speed answer I give people are things like, okay, well, are the inputs there?
Yep.
Are they doing the times? Are they doing the outreach? Are they doing all those kind of key things? Then it's looking at the outputs. So you can have 1 million inputs, but if they're not converting to outputs, training issue.
Yeah.
Okay. But vice versa. Again, you might have someone that's got loads of outputs and hardly any inputs. And you go, well done. What are you doing? I need to find out what you're doing. And then the third aspect, things like results. So everyone, I think it's easy to just look at results. But if you look at those outputs and inputs, sorry, I'm not meant to tap the table. Sorry. We were told. Yeah, we were told.
Don't make it come back in here.
But yeah, I think it's so easy to just look at results. And I think that's where, to give our game away a little bit, is looking at everything is the honest answer.
To ask a bigger question around that, I think it's fair to say you can still have the same activity today that you had maybe 2 years ago, but now that the market is tougher, that jobs are dropping away, that it's getting harder and harder to source those opportunities that lead to revenue for the business, for example. How are you maintaining it when you're saying, cool, the activities are good, but the results aren't there and we've trained you? That no doubt there's been dead ends you've run into. How are you coming over that?
I mean, to give you my overly non-rehearsed answer, I think you can do more inputs. If you haven't got the skill, you can do more inputs. I do this terrible analogy in my training where I quite like darts and I'm relatively okay.
I'm so curious to see where this
goes.
Right?
And if I challenge someone to a game of darts and they said, right, let's score 100 with 3 darts, I'm pretty sure I can do that, or give or take, I get pretty close.
I couldn't.
But exactly.
I'll maybe get 7.
So stick with me. So with 3 darts, I think I'm going to get there because I believe in my ability. If I gave you 3 darts, you might get 20. But what if you had 10 darts? There are your 10 inputs and you probably could get to 100. So with no skill, you can still get to 100, but it's because of those inputs. If I'm more skilled, I don't need 10 darts, I need 3. So I think the job of performance management and all these kind of skills is understanding, okay, actually the dartboard is much smaller. So actually now I've still got 3 darts. Actually, I could do with a few more darts. Even if you are really skilled, what was the bullseye slightly moved, but you're not going to learn that unless you keep putting the inputs in. So it's a balancing act to give you a proper answer. The other way is you get more skilled. You just learn. So actually the smaller dartboard, for those of you that may know a little bit about darts, they practice on dartboards where the doubles and the trebles are actually thinner. So they have to get more precise with their throws. So to use that analogy, I think it's exactly the same in recruitment. Yeah. You can be hyper-focused on particular things to go, okay, is this an input issue or is this a conversion issue?
So on that note then, so I completely agree with you. I think to your question earlier, how...
I'm not falling.
Okay. I've earned my place.
I thought it was an incredible analogy as well. But yeah, your point is really valid. The same stuff that was getting you results 2 years ago just simply isn't getting you the results now. You do need to do more. And the analogy you've got there around the, if you're lower skilled, you could just do 10 versus 3. What do you say to people or business owners who worry about that making their team lazy? Because obviously the harder thing is to improve the skill, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's harder to maintain the 3 and get a better result. It is easier in theory in people's minds to do 10 or to throw 10 darts versus 3. How do you balance that?
Yeah, to expand on my silly analogy, if I gave...
I'm wondering how deep the rabbit hole
goes. Yeah.
We're coming in a minute.
I feel like I'm having a public demonstration of my training. So if I gave someone 10 darts on a blindfold, there's still a chance they might get somewhere, but as long as they're throwing the darts roughly in the right direction, they should get something. That's the fear. That's what I think you're talking about there, is that if you're just letting people just do this, you might be lucky and they might get something. But if you've got a coach or a manager, now, of course, I'm going to be biased because, of course, I'm an L&D guy. Yeah. But if you've got someone there to go, even if they're blindfolded, you can go, actually throw that dart slightly to the left. Yep. If you throw the next one slightly to the left. And I think I'm a big F1 fan. Sorry to keep using sport analogies.
Weren't you like the fan of the year a few years ago or something?
Thank you for that. Yes, I am officially...
He's not told me that before.
Yeah, I am officially Red Bull Racing's #1 fan.
Wow.
I won a competition, to be precise. I won it in 2014 and I got to have a private tour of the Red Bull factory.
Nice.
And I got to meet some people. It was so good. Anyway, I know people don't like Red Bull. I love Red Bull. Sorry, lost my train of thought there.
My bad.
No, thanks for the question. So I think you need that performance person to the side. So in Formula One, you have the strategist, you have the driver going, I want to push, I want to overtake. And the strategist is going, no, I think they're going to pit on the next 2 laps. There's no point racing them because they're going to come in. The driver doesn't know that. So to use the recruitment analogy, they're in there hammering the phones or sending out all these outreach. Someone, I don't know who it needs to be, but someone needs to go, actually, this market is so big. Yes, more darts on the dartboard is the way to go. Actually, in this scenario, do you know what? If we throw 10 darts, we might miss 10.
Yeah.
Let's really focus on, we're going to do 1 a day. And if we do 1 a day, instead of scoring 100, we actually might score 1,000. Okay, mathematically, that can't be done.
And is this one way then that you're saying during the tough market now when, again, results aren't as free-flowing as they were a few years ago? I think we all miss those heydays of 21, 22. Results aren't as flowing as they were, but now it's about a part of the motivation comes from refinement of skill and showing them, hey, you can still do things differently here. You can improve here. And yes, you'll still get results today, but imagine what that future could be when the market returns, so to speak.
Couldn't agree more. It is, again, I'm going to keep talking about learning and development. If you take the time now and when it's really, really hard, again, another silly analogy I use is I say to people when they come through my training, imagine you're learning to drive a car. You're not going to learn automatic with me. I'm going to teach you manual because then you can do both. If ever you need to hire a car or something goes wrong, I know lots of electric cars are coming out, but there's still going to be petrol driven and diesel engines for a little while. So the same thing with the training and recruitment. Learn it the hard way. In the hard market, actually, you get some real gold coming out of there.
Love it. Cool.
Completely.
Just a quick one before we get back into things. We know that buying software can be a painful experience. You're signing 2 to 3 year agreements, you're paying thousands up front, spending months going through implementation, and then it's not quite what you were sold during the sales process. But we believe in what we're doing at OneUp here so much that we're currently running a free trial. No setup work required on your side, no credit card info required. Just get in touch on our website, oneupsales.com, and you get to see what TVs and competitions can do to lift up a little bit of life on your sales floor during a year where things are pretty tough. Look forward to seeing you there soon. Let's get back to the episode.
And Dougie, I want to come to you for a second as well, because you've got a really unique perspective here. One where, as you said, you're the CRO over at SourceWhale. You've got your own team selling into this market, and SourceWhale are, I think we'll all agree, a very big success story, if not the best success story in Rectech at the minute, which is a great thing to see.
Thank you.
You've got a team that you manage in there, but you also speak to a lot of customers, seemingly all the time as well. So you've got 2 perspectives here. What have you seen over the last couple of years? How are people keeping, both yourself and your clients, keeping their teams motivated during a tough time?
I think being honest with people is probably the best thing that you can do. I think, like, if I speak to similar to you, I know you said you'd kind of been at a lunch recently. I was at one maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and that came up, and the topic was very much around, like, how do you openly communicate with people what the expectations are? I think, like, it's really easy for us to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget to overly communicate, actually, this is what good looks like here. And actually what good looked like 6 months ago and 12 months ago has now changed. Doesn't necessarily mean the expectations have gone up. Sometimes, actually, those expectations, to your point, can come down. We don't want you to do 100 calls now. We want you to do 70 calls, but we want you to do them like this, and being able to put that through. I think people get nervous when there's a lack of communication from the leadership team, and that's hard as well, right? Because as leaders, you don't always have it. You have to give the impression you've always got it figured out, but you don't always have it figured out, right? No. You're kind of working it out as well. So I think that has been a big lesson that we found internally at SourceWhale, but also what we've then heard from the people that we're working with. If I look at how we done, like, a particular example was in 2023, we got to the point where, the first couple of years of the business had grown through a really strong market. SourceWhale was selling itself essentially. You just had to, if you're a recruiter, the thought of using it was obvious given how good the market was. And then 2023 came, and we were in situations where people were coming up for renewals, and those renewals were for, let's say, 15 licenses, but all of a sudden that business now only had 8 staff. So we really had to train and mold our customer success team around, look, the successful metric here is not about maintaining the spend with that account. It's actually about maintaining the account itself in the hope that we can then grow it moving forward. So our success metric changed during that period of time as well. And see a lot of that from the recruiters we speak with. To your point, it's not necessarily right now about the total value of placements at the end of a month or a quarter. Actually, is our average fee value gone up? Is that something we're focused on? Is our conversion rate from CV to interview and interview to offer improving? And I think that's been a big point.
It's a big one. I mean, all the conversations you've had there around, people like to know kind of what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
We see this at renewal a lot at the minute, especially now smaller accounts today. They come up to renewal, a lot of them have gone down in size. But don't get me wrong, some are still growing. Like we had one recently that went from like, I think they were at 17 seats like last year. They come up to renewal this year at like 34.
Yeah.
So they have doubled in size quite literally in the space of a year, which is great to see. But that's not the majority case. And the one thing I'm always very mindful of on things like social media, especially, is you hear people celebrating the success, but it's such a thin slice of people doing that right now that everyone thinks, oh, clearly I'm one of the failures, because no one really wants to get out there and talk about when things are tough.
Yeah.
And until you get people in a room like we did last week, or, we had a good conversation earlier outside before we got started, it is tough for a lot of companies out there at the moment, and it's not a straight path forward. And it's why, again, these last 2 years, it's been that question of how do you keep people motivated day to day when you know that it's so hard out there to get the results that you used to see in a couple of years ago, right?
Absolutely. I think to that point as well, though, you do have to be transparent with people about what's actually in it for them.
Totally.
I think that in a time when things are tough, you're focused on like, okay, the business, what does the business want and what does the business need and what's our goals and what's our financial plan for 2026 and 2027 and how do we plan ahead? But the reality is, like, I think you'd mentioned it earlier, there's people out there that are approaching. One of the clients that you were working with had said, people are coming and approaching our team. They're offering them roles in software and offering them triple the amount or whatever it might be. I mean, the open AI, I don't know how long that'll last, right? But we'll see. But the reality of the situation is for that individual person, they've got to decide what's right for them and for their career. So they need to have a clear pathway in their mind of being like, right, okay, I understand that it's a slightly tougher market right now, but you're showing me a pathway that if I do X, Y, and Z and I follow the training that you're giving me, I'll get these results, in the short to medium term, and the long term kind of successful career in recruitment or in this business is still one that's promising to me. I think you need to try and balance the short term motivations with the long term motivations, and I think too often when times are tough, we focus on like the short term, like let's just put a little competition on for a week and like, somebody gets a voucher on a Friday or a beer or whatever it might be. And that stuff is good, but ultimately that individual is going to be questioning. I think it's the long term plan in their mind is the thing that keeps them grounded on whether or not this is something they want to do.
I think we're almost telepathic there, because I was going to come to you with this question next, actually. So thank you.
Sorry, man. You're going to give a much better answer than me anyway. I'm ready for an absolutely incredible analogy.
He's basically taking the job as a host. I'll just leave the studio. You guys carry on. It's fine by me. But I was going to ask you this question around progression. No doubt that's a big part of learning and development. People want to know, how do I build my skills? What does promotion look like? What do you expect internally, and how are you communicating those expectations to people? I think things might be a bit slower than previous.
Yeah, that's a great way. The word there is communication. You've got to communicate with people. If it works both ways as well. So sometimes when you say like the market's bad, people use that as an excuse. Well, the market's really bad. So I think you've got to be transparent, but also got to be a little bit strategic with what you are actually saying to people. Like, yes, okay, the market is tougher. However, the input metric is higher because of this. We have seen this data. So again, talking about all the data things, you can put all this information into a CRM system, but if you're never extracting it, I almost say that's pointless. You can't get anything out of it. Yeah. So to answer your question, when it comes to progression, it's going, well, actually, when you look at the top performers, this is what they're doing. And sometimes it can be quite a bitter pill, because I might say, well, actually, they need to send 100 emails in a month. And then you look at the top performer and you go, they've only sent 10. And you go, okay, well, why have they only sent 10? Yeah. Oh, actually, I thought emails were important, but actually this person's phoning people. Yeah. Oh, actually, that metric's more important. So back to the progression thing, it's being quite transparent with people to go, okay, these are the plans, this is the rough timeline, but things have changed. However, we are still going to measure you on this. And I think a sneaky tip as well for any senior managers is get their buy-in to go, okay, we want you to be here. Well, how do we get there? And get them almost to come to the conclusion.
More like coaching than it is instructing in that case.
Yeah. Like obviously have in your own head, like, these are made up numbers, but you need to bill £100,000 before you become this. And then you go, okay, well, is that fair in this market now? Is that fair? So you can say it to them and they go, oh, I think that's a bit extreme. Okay, well, what is fair? Then if they go 50,000, you go, well, how have you come to that conclusion? And then see their understanding. And then as they explain their answer, you can almost join their dots. You're joining a dot thing where it looks like a square, but they've drawn a triangle, and you go, wait, whoa, we are on different pages. So my honest, short, concise answer for podcast purposes would be, I think it's all about communication. Get them to almost tell you what they expect, and then somewhere in the middle, or maybe you are already aligned, but it's all about that communication piece.
Just on the note of it being like I think you're spot on. I think it's like it's a tougher market, it's a harder market, it's a bad market, like whatever. I think there is a perspective shift that's probably needed for most people on that as well, though. It isn't as easy as what it was, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's necessarily tough either. Like what I mean by that is, like, if the outcome, let's say the end outcome here is that I want to be billing 250k a year, right, or 200k a year, what I need to do to achieve that has changed, but what makes that necessarily harder or tougher, if that makes sense? Like, is it because all of a sudden the required inputs to generate that are more cold calls, and I personally find cold calls difficult? Or is it that I need to sell into a slightly different market and that's change and it's difficult? But there is still business out there. Like, there is still, I mean, I saw a stat the other day that said that there's been, like, because people like to talk about the recruitment businesses that have gone bust, right? Like 120 businesses went bust or something, but 4,000 new businesses were opened. So, like, there is still companies out there that are opening and generating revenue.
You can spin a stat however you want.
Exactly.
You can't if you're not careful.
Yeah, 100%. So maybe there's like a mindset change and a perspective change as well, which is like, it's not necessarily, it's the activity itself that you're finding tough. How do we work with you and coach and support you to change that and make that slightly easier or something more comfortable for you to get there?
It's one thing I really respect about our sales leader, Chris, to be fair, our VP sales. Like, whenever we talk about status stuff, okay, it's been a tough quarter, or this is going, that's going on, he'll always say is like, we don't look externally. We don't blame the market because we can't control the market. So why worry about it? What we can control is internal things. We can control activity we're doing, what pricing we're doing, what our talk tracks are, the coaching stuff that you spoke about. And for the, it's infuriating at points where I'm just like, but we can see the market is harder. And he's just like, yeah, but I don't care. He's like, I'm not focused on that. I focus on what
it's
we
harder
can
for everyone
control.
else.
Yeah. Exactly. It's the same playing field for everybody out there externally. So why worry about it? Focus on what you can control, which is purely internal.
If I can use a Formula One analogy.
We've done some darts, Formula One.
I love
you gotta get wrestling in here.
I will get wrestling in there, I promise. With Formula One, the thing I really like, and it doesn't get talked about enough, is the development race. Everyone talks about the driving race or the team constructors, but actually a car at the beginning of the season is very different to the car at the end of the season. And what happens, the best example, I say best example, there's a great documentary about the Brawn GP team in 2009, where they came out the gate with the best car. But by about race 8 or 9, it was about the second or third best car. And then it became, because they didn't have the money to keep developing. So they made hay while the sun shined. They knew that they were never going to win the development race. So in 2009, which I think is one of the best seasons, is Brawn, I think it was 9 races they win, hands down. But from that point, they never won a race again because all the other teams developed. So Red Bull were chasing all the way through that season. And what Brawn had to do was just do what they could. It was a tough market. Right. We know we're not going to win this Brazilian Grand Prix, but we are pretty good when it's wet. So let's make sure that we've set the car up for this exact thing. We're not going to win, but maybe we can get third or fourth and maybe we can prolong that distance. And I think recruitment is exactly the same. You're racing against all these other teams. You can't control what they're going to do, but you can control what you can do. Right. We know this, we know this, we know this. How can we make the best of this bad situation?
Love it. And this is all focused, as we said, around performance, coaching, development, things like that. What about internally when it comes to incentives or things that you're doing to amp up those days? Because let's not lie, there are days where you come in and you've been told, cool, you've got to do more activity now to get the same outcomes. And you just think, I can't bother. Like, this is being told no or being told F off a few dozen times a day is not anyone's idea of fun. How are you trying to make that a more engaging process?
I know that we're recruitment focused, so I'm going to actually come to my old days in call centres. So some things that your audience might not know about. So people are ringing every day. Hi, you owe money. Hi, you owe money. F off, F off, F off. And so that's hard. That is hard every day. So the incentives were you collected the correct amount of money or you helped the number of people, but you'll notice the slight change of wording there. So in some cases, it was about the genuine revenue. How much money did you collect from people that owe money? Again, these are made up numbers. Today, your goal is to collect £10,000. That is your goal today. Whatever. But then in a tough market where, let's say, a credit crunch was a good example, people don't have that money. So you still want to collect £10,000. But actually, if you can help 15 people, We've changed it. It's still the same metric. We still want people to collect and do the tough conversations. But instead of putting a monetary number, right, if we can help 15 people, okay, I know you could go to the nth degree and go, well, you've only collected £1, but we've still helped 15 people. And now the terminology, when everyone gets those F-offs, the motivation is slightly different. I'm not collecting money. I'm helping people.
It's like playing to purpose in a way, isn't it? In that case, one of our clients did this. I forget what the name was a couple of years ago. Inside our platform, you can name metrics whatever you want. They didn't call them placements made like most companies do. They call it lives changed.
Love that.
And every time something happened, up on the screen would appear, you've changed your life, and here's the candidate, here's the role they're going to. And everything they reinforced internally was, you're giving someone a big step in their career. You're helping them unlock a new part of their life they didn't know about, all through this role that you're moving into. And I thought that was a really cool way to place it, because
I'm going to raise that one more. When I worked for one particular business, this is my favourite thing I ever thought about, ever. It's why it's the only time I think I'm ever going to be able to share this, because it's so niche. That's why I'm so excited. So there was a company-wide incentive to go, we want to make 500 placements this year. That's the goal. And using various tools, you can show that. We can talk about that another time. But exactly that. I thought, well, actually, is there a way I can remind people that there's 60, 70 of us all together, that we're all trying to help people all at the same time? So I had this random idea, and I was surprised they went with it, but it did work. So we had this shelf. When you walked into the office, there was a big shelf. And at the beginning of the year, it was an empty shelf. But every time someone made a placement, woo! But then we had a little wooden person, and we would put the little wooden person on the shelf. And the idea was, I never got to do it in the end. I wanted to take a photo every day and so you could see it. But as the year went on, you could see that these people were building up and building up. And people actually, it became a bit of a ritual to go, oh, can I decorate the person? Can I write the name? And it was just a little bit fun, a little bit, but also it was the big purpose. It's that great word. And it was my favorite thing I've ever thought about from a physical, if we talk learning again, some people are visual, some people are auditory, and some are kinesthetic. They want to touch things. Yeah. And the idea of having that person and then putting it on the shelf, I've made a difference.
What I love about that is it's almost a difference to, I think many would probably say stereotypically people think about the gong in recruitment, right? You make a placement, you ring the bell, like, yeah, you made money. And that's the problem. It's about money in that case, which is very important to a lot of people, 100%. But again, it's about reskinning it and saying, no, this is about the purpose of the people's lives that you're changing, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. I think to take it to an extremely tactical level as well, I remember seeing this in a training session years and years ago, and it's always stuck with me, is that the idea of, like, you know what your conversion rate is from, I think the example used was I need to come in and make X number of calls, right? Yeah. And how do I motivate myself for that? I think it's typically people don't really like rejection, right? So they kind of want to avoid that difficult conversation or just the thought of being told to go away, 10, 15, 20 times, whatever it is. But basically, if you figure out what your average conversion rate is, let's just say it's 1 in 10, 10% of people you speak to, you book a meeting with, or you bring a job on with, or whatever that conversion rate is. Actually, it was almost the countdown the other way of the nose. So the kind of the theory and the tactic was, and this was in recruitment, was that you would actually just tally up how many no's that you were getting. I think
it's just that desk one more time, Callum.
Oh, sorry, there we go. I'm really out on it now.
I can see producer Callum through there. He's giving you evils right now. It's like, fellow Scotsman letting me down. How dare you?
I am sorry. Well, the example works just as well in my
next
hand.
time he does that, you have my permission to slap his hand. You're next to a wrestler, so be very careful.
He would absolutely win in any fight. I know I'm from Glasgow, but I fear Dow Jones more than I fear fellow Glaswegians.
Damn straight.
Carry on, sorry.
No, listen, the concept was really simple. It was just that you would tally up the no's that you were getting, and essentially that would build the excitement towards the yes. Because if it's 1 in 10, then if I'm on 8, then in theory, that over the next 2 calls, that's when I'm going to get that meeting or I'm going to get that conversation. It actually really worked. Because your belief built as it went on, rather than the opposite, which would happen, which would you would start the day full of excitement, and by the 5th or 6th call, you would feel deflated, and you'd want to go and get a coffee and take a break away from your desk, etc. So it was a nice one.
I remember actually when I was first starting the business, we were part of like an accelerator program, NatWest. What was it called? I think it was Spark or something like that. I forget the name now. But there was a business in there, 2 former Army lads who were setting up something called Spearhead Training. And these boys, as you imagine, big, massive, like ex-Army guys doing training and all the rest of it. And they very much took the same view as like, read all these books on cold calling. And the belief they always took was, in this session, I'm not here to try and book a meeting. I'm here to get 20 no's. And then have a couple of these blocks today and sit there and hammer the phones. And once they got to the 20 no's, they were happy and satisfied. Yeah. And the effect that had on these calls was you weren't sitting there desperate for an outcome and whatever. It's almost like, no, I want to get 20 no's because that means I've done the activity I need to. And if we stick to that enough day after day, we'll get the meetings we need. And sure enough, they were signing big clients in like no time because their whole mindset was, I'm not expecting to get anything out of this. That's a good bonus, but otherwise it's about the activity we're putting in. And that's what they tried to stick to, and it worked so well.
And to jump a bit more on that while I remember, it's especially in the modern way of social media, we see all the success stories.
Yeah.
We don't see the effort that goes in. So you mentioned about like big muscly guys. I have to deal with that in my wrestling world, just to be clear.
You're one of them, mate.
Definitely not. McDonald's breakfast, delicious. But now I work with wrestlers that are genuinely constantly looking like incredible. And I say to them, what have you done? And they go, well, I've been in the gym for 4 hours. I've done this diet. I've done this. And you go, oh yeah, you're only wrestling for 20 minutes, but actually you've spent 50 hours this week to look like that. And I only see the 20 minutes of awesomeness. I don't see the 50 hours of input. And I think, again, if we talk about coaching people, is it's reminding them like, yeah, you are going to get a lot of no's, but the more no's you get, you will get those yeses. And then you get on the incentive trips, the lunch clubs, all those kind of things. I think we shy away from showcasing, look at the effort this person put in.
Yeah, we're more like put the results on the grandstand on the podium rather than the effort that goes into it.
And sorry to cut you off there, to use again, I'm going to use Formula One as an example. I've always found this funny. So I'm a big Max Verstappen fan, but
really,
Max. I like to be clear. My hero is Damon Hill, who has had many failures, and Sebastian Vettel, I think, is the best driver. Different story for a different day. But I've always found it funny. They win a race, they get their trophy, and then another race they'll come third. And in my mind, I go, what do they do with those third place trophies? Because they've won 50 first place trophies. Why would they want second and third? If you see, because they've achieved that. But if I rewind, so my favourite team, and I've got a big LinkedIn post about this, was the Jordan F1 team. And he passed away quite recently. And it's why you'll always see me wearing yellow shirt, like something yellow, is because I love the Jordan team, because they made the best out of no budget. So when they did eventually win a race, it was amazing. But they were ecstatic if they finished fifth. And so to use recruitment as an example, you get a new person, a rookie, they're on a client call and they've won a job. You've got to celebrate that, because in that world with those chess pieces, that is an epic win. If you've got a recruiter that's made 500 grand last year and they've done another placement, I get it. Yeah, well done. Yeah, feed that ego. Yeah, I get it. But actually the 4 rookies that have joined and they've been there for 2 months and they've already won some work, or they've got 15 interviews, you go, well done. Yeah. And so when it comes to celebrating successes, it's so easy to look at just the results, but I'm imploring everyone to look at those people that put the effort in. You sent 20 CVs this week. That is blooming impressive. It doesn't have to be a monetary thing. Even just the founder to go, really appreciate that.
Recognition means, I think, a lot more than people give it credit for.
Completely agree with that.
I think as leaders as well, you get so locked into the number, right? You're always thinking about how we're going to hit number, what we're going to do to get there. Oh, it's a deal coming over the line. A lot of times people forget to talk about the small things that go right. You know, did really well on that interview. I watched back the call, thought it was class, well done. And it sounds weird because I think some people are almost scared of being not laughed or mocked, but in a way you almost don't go, oh, well done, mate, that was a great call. And they just go, yeah, cheers. Yeah, and you feel like an idiot for it. But that often isn't the case. People do like just being told, I've seen that small thing you've done, well done. And that can be enough sometimes.
Do you think the reason that doesn't get called out enough is because actually enough leaders don't actually spend the time on the effort side of it? I mean, your whole role is focused around engaging these people and driving them to be better on their inputs. But I think there's very few people actually have like the insight on like the last time they watched a client meeting or went to a client meeting with someone, or
it's because they so often look at like a report and look at the numbers and that's as far as they go. The actual qualitative side of it isn't the thing that they see.
And by the way, in a booming market, when it's, you know, how many more heads can I get in to grow this business and everything else, like that makes complete sense, right? Because you're on scale mode. But
everyone's
when you're
making money, who cares at that point? Yeah.
But when you're in this type of environment, going to your very early question, which was how to make sure that I retain people, I do think there has to be that element of like pastoral care, if you like, and like leadership that comes into it as well.
Agreed. What do you think?
Agreed. Obviously, I'm always going to be biased. I've only ever worked in businesses that have an L&D function, so I can't comment on a business that hasn't got it. But I can imagine, someone joining, sold the dream. They get to their desk, they've been shown LinkedIn, they've been shown the tools. Right, do what that person does. Well, again, sorry to keep bringing up F1, but drivers drive in different styles.
If we used to rename this, driving success.
Oh,
there we go. I'm taking it a bit too literally.
I have, sorry, yeah. So to mock my own favourite team, that Red Bull car is built for Max Verstappen. no one else. So Max can outperform everyone else.
But then saying someone else drive like Max Verstappen doesn't work, right?
Exactly. And I think that's where recruitment businesses go wrong. So that's where I think my secret sauce has been, because I've not done recruitment, I have no unconscious bias. I can only look at the data. I can only look at the results and go, that equals that. Therefore, this is how we're going to do this going forward.
Yeah, there's nothing you can say that's like, oh, this is how I used to do it, therefore I should be teaching them to do it my way.
Yes.
It's what I've seen in the data and what works, which is a really cool perspective when you think about it.
In a business where you don't have an L&D person, or you have a coach in there that might be an ex-recruiter and they've not been trained in how to train, it becomes very much do it like me. And I'm going to use the Max Verstappen example. You've got a world champion, arguably winning car, and the other guy can't get even in the top 10. And I think that's what happens in a lot of recruitment businesses.
How do you scale that? So you're obviously working in a business that has 50, 60, 70 people.
And has an L&D function.
And has an L&D, and has an L&D function. But if they're all unique and all working in a different way, how do you find a format that works?
So I love this question. We probably need another podcast for this entirely, but the speed, concise answer is I'm a big fan of accentuate the positive, hide the negative. So you try to standardize everything as much as you can. But if someone is just really good at talking to people, what is it about them? And there are so many top performers I've met, and I'd name loads, but I'm going to miss some, where when I actually spoke to them, they didn't know why they were good. And that's actually, I think, quite dangerous, because if you go, okay, I go into a meeting and I do X, Y, Z. Okay, great. Do you know why you do that? Well, you can't improve on that then, because you're not consciously aware of that.
Yeah.
So for any smaller business, I say smaller business, but any recruit, I would almost try and compile all of your best people with all the best bits, and almost try and create some sort of, right, well, this person does their meeting like this. Well, this person does their meeting like this. Well, here are two options. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. And then if you get a new person, here are your two versions. See if you can find something in the middle. I know it's a long-winded answer, but that'd be my...
And I'm genuinely curious on this, you might not want to put this
No,
on the
by all means,
podcast.
go ahead.
So that's I promise my last question. Do you think it's more important to double down on people's positives, or do you think it's better to increase where they are going slightly wrong? So if you've got someone who's, say, like a 7 out of 10, and actually they're great on the phone, they're great with candidates, their client meetings are just maybe like a 5, 6 out of 10, do you think it's better for them to get their client meetings to an 8 out of 10, for example, and kind of move it from there?
You have no idea how much I love that question. I love that. So I have a
didn't prep, that's a problem.
Yeah, I have a very harsh, I say harsh opinion. It's not fully thought through, but it's worked for me for the last decade. Is I think if someone's good at something, make them better at it. If they're really bad at something, you can spend so much time trying to make someone bad average, when actually you can make someone who was good great. And I think
it's playing to your strengths, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And so now, caveat to that, of course, if someone is awful at, so a common example is admin. People aren't good at admin, and because they're really good at other things. So I think you've got two strategies there, where you either go, okay, well, this person needs help doing the admin, or you make the admin easier.
Yeah.
And that's where certain products come into play, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, certain products come into. And I think that's another, coming back to tough times, people blame their tools. And so if you've got the best tools, and you know you've got the best tools, it might not feel like the right time to invest, but actually in tough times, that is the best time to invest in a product, because you go, actually, all my consultants aren't doing admin. Is it because they're not very good at admin, or is it because actually it's not easy to do? Do they need upskilling? But to answer your question directly, I would rather spend more time with someone who's already very good at a meeting, and then going, okay, well, how can we make it exceptional? How can you be the number one that you will never, ever be forgotten, and you will almost always convert?
Make the other stuff like serviceable, but really focus on what makes them great.
To big myself up, I wrote down every single part of our recruitment process to minutia. So even like searches, I've got like a document where it's like 700 different ways you could search for something. Like, I won't give too much away. Wink, wink. And then you go, okay, right, if there's 700 different ways to search, no one's going to remember all those 700. So what ones are important? Okay, right, in this desk it's this, in this desk it's this. So to give a bit more context to your question, is it does depend. And if someone's average at everything, fine, make them good at everything. If someone is exceptional at something, but if the thing that they're not good at is detrimental to something, yes, obviously work on that. But actually, if they're just getting by, so again, the admin example, could you get someone else to do the admin? Could you get some AI? Could you get some automation? If that does that, and it means that they can then generate another 2 times doing this, that's probably my answer.
Better outcome, for sure.
Awesome. We've got a couple of minutes, and you've got a busy day ahead of you, everybody, so we've got to start looking to wrap things up soon, I'm afraid. But To kind of close things out, though, we've gone through a whole lot of topics. If someone was listening to this and thinking, I need a way to better motivate people during tough times and keep them excited about the role, what would your top tip be first, Dougie?
I think I would, going back to my earlier point, is just communicate exactly what's in it for people. Sit down with them, understand from them, like, what are they looking to get out of this? What's their kind of medium-term plan? Help them understand and show them what that pathway is. Like, if you do X, Y, and Z, then you'll be able to get A, B, and C in return. I think also creating incentives that are personal to people. And again, it depends on the size of the organisation, but even in large organisations, you have management teams that can deliver this. I think some of the best incentives that I've ever experienced personally has been when, like, I remember wanting to take my wife to London and I wasn't earning a lot of money at the time. This is, years and years and years ago. And the incentive was, if I achieved 125, 130% of my goal, it was Ryan Audra at the time was like, I'll pay for you to go to London and, you can go, your wife can go to the Shard and you can have dinner together. And like, that was so motivating for me. This was like 2015, 2016.
I was going to say, actually, I didn't want to take on top of my note, but you're referencing there. I remember Ryan told me this years ago. He was like, with the team, he'd sit them down and say, look, no one gets up in the morning excited to sell video tech. It's just not what you're born to do. What they are excited about is what they want to accomplish in life. And you'd always want to understand what those motivations are. So I know exactly where you're getting that from, which is good.
And having been on the receiving end of that, like you really experience that and you feel it. And then I think that's something we use a lot at SourceWhale. And it's just making sure that we're enabling our leaders and our management team to have those types of conversations. So for me, it would be understanding what does that person want, showing them a pathway to get there in terms of whether that's career progression so that they've got a medium-term goal to look towards. But if I had to put a specific incentive in place, it would be understanding from them, like, what matters to you outside of work. You can maybe do it in a more general way as well, like Christmas time, for example, at SourceWhale. If people do their target by a certain date in December, if they do their target by a certain, I need to put my hands here. If they do their target by a certain date in December, then they gain access to, one of three things, which could be concert tickets, it could be a sporting event, or it could be a hotel stay. So again, depending on the individual, where they're at in their career, etc., that appeals to them. So
awesome, real good tips there, Alex.
I'm going to butcher this. People that know NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, will leave comments in here that I've explained this very poorly. There's a concept where you can be a very toward person or a very away person. And I think when you look at a business, you'll have a spectrum of people. You probably have got more toward people, which means they're heading towards a goal. I want to win. I want to be the best. But there will be people that are the opposite way. I don't want to be the worst. I want to go away from fear. So talking about incentives, I think it's also understanding what your business looks like, what your ultimate goals are. Another way to flip this as well is, are there individual incentives or are there team incentives? I like to think I'm quite self-sufficient. I just want to turn up, do a good job, because deep down I'm an away person. I don't want to be the worst. The only way to not be the worst is to be the best. So people think I'm a target-driven person. I'm really not. However,
fear-driven.
However, I don't want to let my team down. And so actually a way to get me to do something that I don't actually want to do is to go, well, actually, we need you to do that, Alex. We need you to. I'm not very good at like Christmas parties. So I've been told before, like, Alex, we need you there because it would be really sad if you're not there. You'll really upset people. Fine, I'll go. But it makes me go. If I wasn't told that, I won't go because I don't want to do it. So I think, incentives, you've got to look at your whole plan and go, I've got loads of toward people. Maybe a team incentive could be a way to get those, especially the non-billing people. How do you get non-billing people involved? Team incentives is a fantastic way.
We speak about this a lot. So inside OneUp, you'll know we have missions as a concept and it's all about a team-based thing. But the reason why that exists is no one wants to be the person at the bottom that's holding everyone else back from unlocking a target. Even those that are like your middle or laggard performers are the ones that want to say, I don't want to be seen as the bad guy here that's holding everyone else back. I'll make sure I'm contributing here, which is a good thought as well.
And again, back to the communication side, as long as you explain to those non-billing people or the people that may be at the bottom, like, hey, you're going to be, it's cool, it's okay. We know you're not going to be able to be at the top, but just need you to try. Just need a little bit. And if you have that conversation, if it's a real problem, maybe remove them from it, which is fine. But I think that's the secret to some really good incentives.
Yeah, to summarise that for me, the key thing from this whole thing that's been the trend has been communication is number one. And it sounds like such a generic thing to say. It's very, very true. But being transparent and being willing to say, we haven't got all the answers, but let's figure it out together. Where do you want to get to? It's all gold dust that you can take away from that one. But that's about time, guys. We'll wrap up there because I'm aware you're now about to go for a mad sprint across London. But gents, it's been a real pleasure having you, and thank you so much for coming down and giving us your time today. And hopefully we can do it again at some point.
I'd love to.
Awesome. Catch us next time for the next episode. Catch you later.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and there's another one coming as well, so you've got that to look forward to. But just to top and tail things here, I'll mention what I talked about a little bit earlier on as well. We're currently running a 28-day free trial of OneUp. If you want to see what it's like having TV screens with leaderboards in your office, deal celebrations, competitions that you haven't got to worry about updating on whiteboards and spreadsheets anymore, now is the perfect time to give it a go. We're going into that summer lull period where things get a bit quiet. Well, a good way to overcome that is by injecting a little bit of energy. So if you are interested, oneupsales.com, have a look at our free trial. And if it's of interest, get yourself signed up. Look forward to seeing you on the platform soon and seeing you in our next video coming out in a few weeks' time. See you then.